topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
What's working on purpose anyway? Each week, we ponder the answer to this question. People ache for meaning and purpose at work, to contribute their talents passionately and know their lives really matter. They crave being part of an organization that inspires them and helps them grow into realizing their highest potential. Business can be such a force for good in the world, elevating humanity. In our program, we provide guidance and inspiration to help usher in this world we all want, working on purpose. Now, here's your host, Dr. Elise Cortez.
Welcome back to the Working on Purpose program. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Great to have you. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, joining you live from Dallas, which is home base for me. If we've not met yet and you don't know me, I'm a management consultant, organizational logotherapist, speaker, and author. My team and I at Elise Cortez and Associates help companies to enliven their operations by articulating their purpose and building inspirational leaders and cultures activated by meaning and purpose to turn those companies from a flatline EKG to a vibrant workplace. There, people are intrinsically motivated to perform at their best, grow to their fuller potential, and are committed to stay and help deliver on the company's mission. You can learn more about us and how we can work together at elisecortez.com. Now, let's get into today's program. With us is Dr. Lance Secretan, a spiritual thought leader, the world's top authority on inspirational leadership, a trailblazing teacher, advisor, and expert in corporate culture, whose best-selling books, inspirational talks, and life-changing retreats have touched the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. He's the author of 24 books about leadership, inspiration, corporate culture, and entrepreneurship, as well as an award-winning memoir, A Love Story, and he's the co-author of dozens more. His latest book is Reawakening the Human Spirit, Finding the Spark, the Flame, and the Torch Within, which is what we're talking about today. He joined today, I think, from Toronto, Canada. Dr. Lance Secretan, welcome back to Working on Purpose.
It's great to be with you, Elise. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure, friend, mentor, coach. I really, really appreciate having you in my life and learning from you and being constantly inspired by you.
And likewise, by the way, I'm honored to be in the hands of a very experienced author. So,
well, I'm learning from you, my friend. I'm learning from you. So it is really remarkable to me. As I was thinking about this conversation tonight, Lance, I was just really reflecting on that. You've devoted your whole life to elevating the human condition and leadership through your teaching, your coaching, your writing, your speaking. I don't think I've ever asked you, what is the actual source of your boundless energy? Where does all this come from?
You broke up a bit there, Elise. Say that again. I heard the part about whole life teaching and coaching.
Okay. Yeah, I think we have kind of a interesting connection. But so what I was saying to you is, here I know you, of course, have spent your whole life devoted to elevating the human condition through your leadership and your teaching, your coaching, your writing, your speaking. But I don't think I've ever asked you really, what is the source of this boundless energy? Where does all of this come from?
I wish I knew, really. I think it's all about our life's experiences, isn't it? I can tell you one thing that's sort of a strange evolution. I worked for many years who I referred to him as the boss from hell. And it was a nightmare, but an amazing occasion, good and bad. Someone asked me to be the CEO of Manpower. And I had never run anything in my whole life. So here I am, running a company, CEO company that I didn't know what I was doing. And so I thought, what I can actually think of right now is to do what my boss did for the last 7 years. And that's how I learned a very important lesson, because I just look around, Elise, and I see what's happening. I think, well, let's do the opposite. It could work a lot better than this.
And that's where it all came from. That's pretty remarkable to me. I also really appreciate that you really you are a spiritual, inspirational leader. I really appreciate that you distinguish yourself that way. And I align with that in my work too, which of course is probably why I keep following you around everywhere you go. But we also heartily agree on what you premise in your book. You open this latest book by saying that we've lost humanity in corporate America and therefore our inspiration.
So I can go down and say hello and tell them I love them. A bit strange, but major problem. How is that? Crazy. We're humans in every place.
Yeah. Oh, I'm having such a hard time hearing you, Lance. It feels like a robbery here that I can't actually hear you. I'm probably getting one out of every 4 or 5 words.
I know.
Okay. One, I wanted to step in and ask you for your guidance here. What do you suggest? Yeah. Can we call you, Lance? We're here.
Sure.
What's the number?
Yes.
Actually, can you put it in the chat for me, Lance? Can you type it into the chat?
6.
I can't hear you. Can you type it in the chat? Oh, there you go. So can you see that one? Are you able to call him? Okay, I see it. Do you see that, Lance? He says the call's not going through. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Lance, can you turn off your video and let's just try audio? Did you see that note, Lance? Can you try to cut your video?
Okay.
No, it's not a 1 number. He's in Canada, so. You should just be able to dial the 519. I don't.
Yeah, 519 is a foreign number.
But is it with
a Canadian number? Where do I shut the video off?
At the bottom on the StreamYard it says stop cam.
Stop com?
Stop.
Oh, cam.
Yeah,
right. Got it. There we go.
Okay, so that sounds better.
All right. How does that sound?
Yeah, let's rock and roll. Okay. All right, we'll let Juan do his magic here. Okay, so let's just start here from the beginning here. Okay, so Lance, welcome back to Working on Purpose. It's amazing to have you. I so appreciate that I get to have you in my life as a mentor, a coach, an advisor, and a friend. And I'm really glad to have you back on Working on Purpose.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you so much, Elise. The feeling is mutual.
Thank you. Well, so as I was thinking about what I wanted to ask you about today on the show, Lance, I pondered and recognized that you've really devoted your whole life to elevating the human condition and leadership through your teaching, your coaching, writing, and speaking. But I don't think I've really ever asked you what the source of all this boundless energy is. Where did this all start and come from?
Well, that's two questions, because where does the energy come from? It comes from people
Right.
like you. It comes from you. Listen, I spend all day talking to amazing people every single day. How can you not be inspired? That's my life. It's awesome. It's just amazing. I don't talk to any fools or idiots or people that don't get it. It's just they don't show up in my life, so it's not a problem. How did this all start? Well, when I was in my young years, in my 20s, early 20s, I worked for a man who was the boss from hell. And I learned a lot. It was my first really serious big job. But it was difficult. Then I got headhunted, and somebody asked me at the age of 27 to run a company called Manpower. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was 27. I didn't know anything. And so I show up as a CEO, and I'm thinking the only thing I can think of doing here is do the opposite of what my boss did. And so that's what I did. And by the way, that's historically, that's how the Declaration of Independence got created. It's how a lot of things happen. We look at things that aren't working and saying, well, this is not rocket science. Stop doing that and do the opposite.
I'm quite sure I did not know that part of your past. I'm so glad I asked that. I kind of refer to that as the anti-role model in my research. So I can appreciate the power of the anti-role model.
Sure.
Well, you open your book, and I terribly align with this, but I'd like you to expound on it. But you open in this latest book by saying that we've lost humanity in corporate America, and therefore we've lost our inspiration. Say more about what you mean by that.
Well, have you noticed, for example, we say stuff like, let's have a meeting with the marketing department. We don't say, let's have a meeting with Elise, Lance, Fred, and Susie. They're not human beings. They're somehow transactions and remote. And I can, to give you another example, I can walk down the end of my driveway, go up in the street and say hello to a complete stranger, give them a hug and say I love them. And they might look at me funny, but I don't think they'd be upset with me. I can't do that at work. I'll be in all kinds of trouble. Who said that I'm only able to love people from 5 p.m. in the evening till 9 a.m. the next day? And at 9 a.m. I have to stop doing that. What kind of crazy world did we create? Look at what's going on right now, Elise, with dragging people back to the workplace. Yes, of course, it's appropriate sometimes. But look, why would you do that? This is a one-size-fits-all thing. You know what's happening here? I've got a big building that I'm paying gazillions of dollars rent for. I need you to come back here and get rid of my overhead. That's why we're doing it. Instead of sitting down with people saying, what do you need, Elise? We'll build it for you. You want to work 2 days at home, take your cat out at 10 o'clock in the morning? You want to have lunch with your honey and then work all night till midnight? What's the problem? If you get the work done, this is treating human beings like human spirits.
I align with that. And you were good enough to write the foreword of my book of The Great Revitalization. And of course, I address that too, this notion of stepping away from presenteeism to performance. So instead of having to manage that, you can actually see a human being. Let's look at what they're actually doing and performing instead and accommodate that. Yes.
Right.
Well,
and they're not functions.
Sorry, Lance, please go ahead.
They're not functions. They're human beings.
That's right. That's right. And to that end, one of the things I really appreciate about your book too is you talk about the answers to these issues that we have. This issue of we've lost humanity in corporate America is the answer to these issues you say are not just corporate solutions, they are human and spiritual solutions. We just don't hear that very often, Lance. Would you say more about what you mean by that?
Well, that's a big mountain to climb, I think, in the sense that I don't believe we're much there. If you take a look at Washington or corporate America, I mean, it's not pretty well like that. But I think there's a sense that we understand this is not the world we need right now. Something is going adrift in a big way in lots of areas. And I think the other thing I've noticed is there's a heaviness in our society today where the weight of so many things that aren't working is weighing down on people and causing them to be uninspired. Ukraine, opioid crisis, polarization, climate change, inflation, job loss. This is no end. ChatGPT now, new thing that's scaring all of us. So what can I do about this? Not much. but I can do something inside.
Mm.
I can choose to be inspiring instead of uninspiring or uninspired.
I also align, and I'm going to get to that as well, that last bit that you just said there, but I also just really want to call it what you say in the book, because I completely align with it. I think it's so crisp. You say, I have been especially struck by the intense and growing need of everyone I meet for something that they can believe in, something that demands and engages their deepest longings. People seek to ensure that their lives are fueled by passion, have meaning, and that they are needed in the world. I completely get that too, Lance, when I'm in all of my interactions.
Right. And we've been going the wrong way recently. Like, I used to trust science. I'm not so sure anymore. I used to trust institutions. I'm not sure about that either. I used to trust banks. Not sure I'm happy with banks at the moment. I mean, we're losing faith in the things that are really important to us, and we need to get that back.
I completely and profoundly agree. And going back to your other point about, the importance of inspiration in the world as really the ticket, I align with what you say, that in order for us to actually be able to create inspiring relations in environments and workplaces, we must first become inspired ourselves. We have to turn ourselves on first.
Right. And there are lots of ways to do that. One of them is to understand why we're here. What's the point of our lives? How could we go through life trying to lead, mentor, coach, teach other people and not even know why we're here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the point? Are we going through here to have a family, put our kids through school, university, get a good pension or a healthcare plan, then retire? Is that it? This must be something more than that. And that's what I think we need to learn. We have a whole process for teaching people how to discover why you're here on this planet and what you're going to do with your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I terribly enjoyed reading through all of that, by the way, because I learned more things about your actual approach than I didn't know before. So I've been very anxious to share more of that with people that I meet, and bring them, if we can, into your higher ground leadership group. So you talk about the overarching name for the work that you're describing in this book is higher ground leadership. I have, of course, an inkling of what that is because I get to be part of some of the things that you do. But for our listeners and viewers who don't, what is it?
High ground leadership is a way to address the spirituality of who we are. I don't mean only, but I mean to include that. How can we address each other if we only approach the ego and deal with the ego? Manipulating, coercing, bribing, rewarding, all the things we do to get people to perform. We miss the other half of their whole human presence, which is who they are at another level altogether, an intrinsic level. It's a spiritual level. I mean, what would happen if we sat down with people and said, Elise, what would inspire your soul?
Yeah, I was just thinking, what would make your heart sing? What would delight your soul? I was thinking that too. How often does somebody ask you that kind of a question? And certainly in the workplace.
Right. That's right.
Well, to sort of give our listeners and viewers just a bit of a taste here, your book, it's, as I told you earlier in the conversation, Lance, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful work. And you're welcome. And you say that there are three big ideas in the book. And you say the first premise of the book is that all inspired and inspiring people have a deep clarity about three things. And you've sort of mentioned this. Why are they here on Earth? What values will they live by? And how will they use their skills and talents to serve the world? You say that's it. Simple. But of course, not easy.
Right. So we have three questions. Why are you here? I mean, in the end, if you believe in any kind of afterlife or higher power or divine authority of some kind, whatever it is for you, when it's all over and you get asked, hi, Elise, how was the last 100 years on Earth for you? What did you do? And if you say, well, I put my kids through school and I got a pension and I retired and died, I think the higher power is going to say, that's it. You didn't do anything else. You didn't make the world better. You didn't leave your mark. You didn't improve things. You didn't contribute to humanity. What happened? Did you sleepwalk all that time?
Yeah. I often think to myself and ask myself, really, that's all you want from this life? That's it? We have so much here, and that's all you want. So of course, you and I are in a similar business in that we are out to awaken people to that,
right,
which they can be and how they can serve and make a difference in the world. And it's so important because what I've discovered, Lance, and I know you have too, A lot of people either forgot that or lost hope or got lost along the way or something. And
Right.
we are needed.
Yes. And the pieces that you're referring to, how do we fill up our own well, the spark, as I call it? Well, one of the things is knowing who we are. Second thing is to stop using language of war. We want to inspire people. If I say to you, Elise, I would kill for your hair, I don't mean anything hurtful, but I do it anyway, unconsciously, because the word kill is a very toxic word. And it initiates all kinds of stress hormones in your body. You don't even know it. And meanwhile, I could say, Elise, I love your hair. I'm saying the same thing. I'm just choosing different words. When you think about business, it's laced with the violent language of war. We talk about war rooms and doing end runs on people and destroying the competition and having killer apps and being blown away and blowing the doors off and pull the trigger. And I mean, it's just never ending. And so if we want to poison people, that's a good way to do it with that language. If we want to inspire them, only the language of love is going to do that.
That's a great way to take us into our first break, Lance. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. We've been on the air with Dr. Lance Secretan, a spiritual thought leader, the world's top authority on inspirational leadership, a trailblazing teacher, advisor, and expert in corporate culture, whose best-selling books, inspirational talks, and life-changing retreats have touched the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, including my own, as he is my mentor and coach. We've been talking a bit about some of the main principles and foundations of his book. After the break, we're going to get further into the actual flame piece of the book. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us. Before we get back to the program, I'm very excited to announce the launch of the Purpose and Joy Tour. This is a collaboration with Joyly, an organization that teaches mindful practices to help to build a happy, healthy, resilient world. And of course, my firm, Elise Cortez and Associates, that activates meaning and purpose in company culture and leadership to increase fulfillment, performance, and retention. Together, we're going to 33 cities across the United States, starting in Dallas in March and finishing in Virginia Beach in October, to find our tribe and build a community of people who seek to elevate their lives and businesses by cultivating meaning, purpose, and joy. You can find the list of cities, dates, and planned events at gusto-now.com/events. So excited to be with you in your own backyard. Find your city, mark your calendar, and register for your events. See you there. If you're just now joining the program, my guest today is Dr. Lance Secretan. He's the author of 24 books about leadership, inspiration, corporate culture, and entrepreneurship, as well as an award-winning memoir, A Love Story. And he is the co-author of dozens more. We're talking about his latest book today, Reawakening the Human Spirit, Finding the Spark, the Flame, and the Torch Within. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So one of the things that, of course, is the pinnacle of your work, and you're extremely well known for, of course, are your castle principles. And you say that the flame is ignited when we live a set of values that you call the castle principles. It's an acronym for 6 inspiring ways of being. Will you take us through those 6 inspiring ways of being?
I'll tell you a little story. I was on Marianne Williamson's podcast the other night, and
I saw that, yes.
She's running for president. And I was reminding her of something that happened 20 years ago. We've known each other for a long time, and I was staying at her home in Detroit when she lived there, and with my wife. And I was very excited because I said to her, Marianne, I've got this amazing new model that I'm working on. It's called the Castle Principles, and it's an acronym. It stands for, and she said, just a minute, let me guess. It's courage, authenticity, service, truthfulness, love, and energy. And my mouth dropped. I was amazed. I never shared it with anybody. I didn't know how she knew this. I said, how'd you do that? And she said, well, I know your work, so I cheat a bit. So I sort of guess where you're going. I know you're not going to talk about war or bombs or anything, so I know the direction you're taking. But here's the most important thing. There's nothing new to learn.
Mm-hmm.
We were born with love. We weren't born with fear. We learned fear and we forgot love. So what have we forgotten? You know, when we ask people, what do you not like about people? And they said, we don't like cowards. We don't like phony people. We don't like people who are selfish. We don't like people who lie. We don't like people who rule with fear. And we don't like idiots. And we said, you know, to take the point we made earlier, just do the opposite. The opposite is courage, authenticity, service, truthfulness, love, and effectiveness. And that, as you say, has been now practiced by millions of people all over the world. And one of the things about it, and because there's nothing to learn, one of the things about it that's so incredible is how sticky it is. I've talked to people who heard me speak 20 years ago, couldn't remember the 7 habits, but could remember the castle principles.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
Because, you know, if you can't remember them, you can't live them.
I think it helps to organize them around an acronym, though, as well. And that's really, really powerful. I think that's just very useful. And and then further to that end, one of the things that I've also learned from you that I am quite sure that I haven't gotten anywhere else but you, and we talked about it in one of our calls, I think it was last week, but it's this notion of the PIES learning journey that you have developed. Would you share that with us? It's very powerful.
Yes. Well, there are several chunks of the book in the front, which are basically foundational ideas. Before we get into the content, I want to set some things up. So one of them is about having a learning mindset, being open to new ideas, because this book is radical. It's going to tilt windmills all over the place, upset a lot of people, go against the grain in the corporate world. So, you know, if you're not ready for that, then don't bother. But if you've got an open mind, at least listen to other ideas. You don't have to actually buy them all, but listen to them just to see if there's anything there that works for you. So that's the important part of that foundational piece. So learning is a crucial piece. And how we learn is in sequence of what I call another acronym, PIES. We learn incrementally. First of all, we learn politically, P for politically. So somebody says, don't throw your water bottle out of the car. And I say, okay, why I will do that. I don't think that's very smart. There's only me, and I'm just one person out of 8 billion. What difference does one bottle make for me? So I'll do it because I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want you to judge me, but I don't really buy it. That's political learning. Intellectual learning. Oh, if I throw my bottle out and everybody else does, then there'll be bottles all over the place. And that'll be a mess. I get it. Okay. That's intellectual learning. Emotional learning is I'm part of the planet. This is me that I'm spoiling and fouling when I throw garbage out. So I don't want to hurt me. So this is an emotional connection I have with the world, and therefore I'll behave. And I really buy it. And finally, spiritual learning is when we get to be a teacher. I am so passionate about this idea to be a missionary. I'm going to teach everybody I bump into not to throw their bottles out of the car window. That's spiritual learning. You're effectively then a missionary.
That was a powerful illustration. I love that you do the same thing in the book. It's powerful. I want to also read something else you have here and ask you to comment on it. I thought it was extraordinary. You say we can raise the level of inspiration in our lives by practicing the art of discourse in ways that make the other person feel larger, not smaller. Every opinion can be held and respected while we continue to respect the sacredness of those with differing views. Imagine that. Progress and joy in our lives occurs when you and I are one, not when we are separate.
Right. I've written in another book, an earlier book called One, that when we are separated from what and whom we love, we're in pain. And whenever we're in joy or bliss, it's because we're one with whom or what we love. The what being a hobby or a job that you love, or a race you're running, or a meal you're eating, or whatever. And the who being a spouse, a partner, a friend, children, and so on. So when we're connected and feel one with them, we're inspired. And when we're not, we're not.
I think that's an incredibly beautiful and simple idea that is just incredibly alluring, Lance. And we can make a whole show and probably a whole book. Well, you did a whole book just around that.
Yes.
Very, very powerful idea. Now, next, this is something that I think you do so incredibly well, like no one else I have ever met. You distinguish the words motivation and inspiration when, in fact, most people conflate them. Will you do that for us now? Will you distinguish them for us?
So we have become experts at motivation. Motivation is a fear-based system, and it really has its roots in people like B.F. Skinner and Pavlov and all the early behavioral scientists more than 100 years ago. So it's a pretty old idea. But the idea is, if I want to get you to do something, Elise, I either bribe you, you'll get a bonus or a trip to Hawaii if you get it done, or I punish you, you get to lose your job. I mean, this is the way we run companies. Mm-hmm. But it's the way we run everything. Think of marketing. Buy this product or you'll be ugly. Think of religion. Join my religion or you go to hell. Academia. Pass this exam or I'll fail you. Healthcare. Follow this protocol or you'll die. Business. Do what I say or I'll fire you. Parenting. Do what I say or I'll punish you. I mean, there's no end to this. Mm-hmm. So we're experts. We absolutely know this. We've got it locked down totally. And leadership theory and human resource policy are all about risk and reward, punishment and reward. But there's another half to this. Motivation is something that works short term. If this building's on fire, I'm going to get you to get out of here. But inspiration is for the long term. Motivation never works for the long term because we resent people who motivate us. It's like COVID. All the punishment and the threats and the rest of it that happened during the pandemic. Imagine what would happen if we had inspired people instead of beating them up. So the way I look at this is that motivation is lighting a fire under someone, and inspiration is lighting a fire within someone. And we do not know much about inspiration. We know a lot about motivation. But if we could move now to choosing more to use inspiration than motivation, we would change everything. Imagine politics if it was inspiring.
Yeah. Yes. And I can tell you that I don't mind saying it. I found Barack Obama very inspiring.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. And I think Reagan too in his time was inspiring. Roosevelt was inspiring too. I mean,
yes.
Even Clinton could be very inspiring.
Yes, too. Indeed. I'd like to live in that world where I'm more inspired than I am motivated. Yeah. So thank you for distinguishing that. Yes. Well,
and think about the spousal relationships. We marry people that inspire us and then we divorce them when they don't.
That's so true.
Yeah, we've all been there. So you know how it works. Is that every day it's true across every aspect of our lives.
It's such a great way to distinguish it. When we distinguish that as we are, Lance, and ladies and gentlemen, when you read any of his books, you'll just get deeper into it. So this becomes more a part of you. It really makes it just where you can actually live this stuff. On that note, let's grab our last break here if we can. We've been on the air with Dr. Lance Secretan talking about his latest book here, Awakening the Human Spirit. Lance is an expert on corporate culture whose best-selling books, inspirational talks, and life-changing retreats have touched the hearts and minds of hundreds of thousands of people across the world, including me. And he'll do the same for you. Check out his website while we're on our break. It's secretan.com. We'll be right back.
Dr. Elise Cortez is a management consultant specializing in meaning and purpose, an inspirational speaker and author. She helps companies visioneer for greater purpose among stakeholders and develop purpose-inspired leadership and meaning-infused cultures that elevate fulfillment, performance, and commitment within the workforce. To learn more or to invite Elise to speak to your organization, please visit her at elisecortez.com. Let's talk about how to get your employees working on purpose. This is Working on Purpose with Dr. Elise Cortez. To reach our program today or to open a conversation with Elise, send an email to Elise, A-L-I-S-E, at elisecortez.com. Now, back to Working on Purpose.
Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to Working on Purpose. I mentioned in the last break that we're launching the Purpose and Joy Tour. We actually have been on it for a while. The two latest books that will be part of the events in that tour experience are The Great Revitalization, How Activating Meaning and Purpose Can Radically Enliven Your Business, which helps leaders learn how to build elevating and high-performing cultures and leadership. The other book is called Coloring Life, How Loss Invites Us to Live More Vibrant Lives, which helps people navigating loss to transform to growth and vitality. You can find them both on Amazon or my website, elisecortez.com. If you're just now joining us, my guest is Dr. Lance Secretan, the author of 24 books about leadership, inspiration, corporate culture, and entrepreneurship, as well as The Bellwether Effect, Stop Following, Start Inspiring, which we talked about last time he was on the show in October of 2018. Today, we're talking about his latest book, Reawakening the Human Spirit, Finding the Spark, the Flame, and the Torch Within. I'm your host, Dr. Elise Cortez. So one of the things that you do in the book, Lance, which is beautiful, is you have all these reflections that you showcase in the book. And of course, I want to talk about just one of them, and that is calling. And I really appreciate the way that you do this. And I just want listeners and viewers, imagine if your manager or somebody in your organization were to ask you this set of questions. Imagine this. The first question then is, what do you truly love? By this, I mean, what is it that truly calls you, that deep down at a visceral level you love to do because you find it exhilarating and profoundly inspiring? What enchants you? What romances you? What creates magic in your life? What career path do you secretly wish you had chosen years ago? Can you imagine having a conversation with your manager or boss on that level? So Lance, would you say a bit more about that bit of a calling? I mean, that's the general realm that I live in too. I have to imagine that a few people on the show might have just fallen over hearing that.
Yeah, I know. It does sound kind of out there, but there are a lot of jobs that people do that aren't their calling. And I'm not sure what the numbers would be, but I'm thinking that if I went to a large corporation with, shall we say, 100,000 employees and said, okay, everybody who's not following their calling, leave now, I think you'd be left with about 12 people. And well, that's kind of depressing. Now, what are we supposed to do? Of course, cleaning toilets every day, all day, for 5 days a week or whatever it is not obviously what your calling might take you. But here's what the manager can do. The manager can say to the toilet cleaner, what's your dream? Because my job is to help you achieve your dream. Now, supposing the employee says, well, I want to pay off my car, or I want to take my kids to Disney World. Okay, I'm your manager. I'll help you get there. Let's make a plan. And that's what this is about. Yeah, thank you for cleaning toilets, and you do it beautifully. But I know that I can't help you get excited or inspired about that, but I can touch other parts of your lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we could be doing.
Yes, that's what I'm asking. I know you're asking managers and leaders to do as well. I really couldn't resist. I have to share with you, there's some listeners and viewers, how Lance describes this idea of calling. He says, think of your true calling as inhaling the memory of virtuosity not yet experienced. Inhaling the virtuosity not yet experienced. The memory of virtuosity not yet experienced. That's so powerful, Lance. That talk about a compelling, inspiring vision to live into. Well,
in the future, if we were to achieve our dream, it would then become a memory. So what we're actually trying to do here is recall the memory that hasn't yet been experienced. And people, I think, dream too small. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, we really should be dreaming big, because we will get closer to whatever it is we're dreaming about, even if we don't make it. But if you dream about nothing, then you'll get there too. So the question becomes, well, what's your dream? And that's one of the pieces in the spark, by the way. How do we become inspired? Mm-hmm. By making sure we have a dream. But think about this. Most people have either lost their dream or don't have one. That's true of America, by the way. It's true of corporations. Corporations have mission statements, blah. How about a dream, something big, like Starbucks has, for example? Their dream is to create the third place. That's a dream. It's not about building coffee shops. It's about creating a place that people love to be and hang out, do job interviews, hook up with each other, have meetings, have dates. That's what it's about. And it's just like they're creating the environment. That's the dream. And Howard Schultz got that dream when he was in Italy and discovered everybody else has 3 places.
I think I read that in one of your books. I think that's how I
Mhm.
learned about that. And so that is definitely something I wanted to talk about because, it's sort of related to the work that I'm doing when I go inside companies to help them articulate their purpose and in a way that it is inspiring. So, but you have a process of creating a dream, the one dream process.
Yes.
It has 3 phases. Will you tell us about them?
Yes, it has, well, sort of 3 in a way, because one, we have to try and figure out what is the permission that you have. Permission is very important. You can't just invent a dream and then there's no mechanism for getting there. There's no people to support you. There's no money or funds or even the reality of getting there. So you need to do the homework in that sense. There are lots of ways of doing that, but we need to make sure there's environmentally, we will be supported with the dream. Then we want to articulate the dream. And then finally, we want to realize the dream. Well, the way I look at this is that identifying the dream is maybe 10% of the work. Realizing the dream is about 20%, and maintaining is 70%, because that's the hard part. And I have worked with so many companies where I'll mention one in particular, not by name, but one of the largest office furniture companies on the planet had an amazing run. I worked with them for years and years. And then they hit the recession in 2008, and everything went back to square one. And so, how long can you keep your dream? The question is, what can you maintain it? Can you maintain your dream when there's a recession? That's the challenge. It's not just in the good times. You have to have a powerful enough dream that keeps you going, because that's what we get up in the morning for. To get up in the morning, the mission statement is not going to work for me.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Back on the inspiration front. And for listeners and viewers who don't know Lance's work, I want to treat you to just a passage here. It illustrates in my mind just how beautiful this man writes and how compelling it is. So I'm going to embarrass you, Lance, with this, but I love this. You say, years ago, when I was the CEO of Manpower, I employed a salesman called Mike. He weighed 285 pounds, drank 6 pints of beer each day, and played 36 holes of golf for as many days of the week as he could, which was usually at least 6. He was an awesome golfer. As his manager, I could not easily organize him, encourage him to follow any kind of structure, submit reports, or make sales calls. In fact, I couldn't put him into a box of any kind. Trying to do so, I soon learned, was like putting socks on an octopus. But his personal production was extraordinary. And then you go on to say that you literally, your customers would call you and ask, can I get a booking time or a tee-off time with Mike, and I can sign my contract then? I mean,
Right.
It's extraordinary, but the way that you write about it, Lance, is obviously quintessentially you, and I just wanted to celebrate that.
Thank you so much for saying so. He was amazing. What I learned, you see, from that is I can't force people to fit into my box. I need to go the other way. If we want to inspire people, I need to get into your box and say, what is it about you that you need right now? What lifts your spirit? What talks to you? What energizes your heart? It's about you. It's not about me. I don't need you to fit into my system. If you can sell the socks off everybody, tell me how you do it, and I'll throw things at you to make it work better.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and to me that really speaks to looking for the individual genius in everyone, unlocking that, making a space for that so that they can really shine and bring their best.
Yes. I mean, I don't want to be in the army. I want to be a solo spirit.
Yes. So as you go through this, you go through the book here, you have the parts, of course, but I think the way that I want to, if you could articulate just how all of these pieces are fitting together. You talk about the spark ignites the flame sets fire to the torch. We convert the spark into a flame, using it to light the torch, which we pass to others, et cetera, et cetera. Would you build that for us? Because the way that you paint that for us, Lance, is so alluring. How could we resist?
Well, I think that the misimpression that we have and the misteaching, the incorrect teaching, is that as leaders or even as parents, and we're all leaders, I make that point in the book, so it's not just about being in the C-suite or being a manager. It's about being a leader, because even a 6-year-old in the schoolyard is a leader. And sometimes in a marriage, one of us is a leader and the other one isn't, and then the roles reverse depending on what we're doing or talking about. So we're all leaders. And so in order to be effective that way, I need to inspire people, but I can't keep doing it if I'm empty. I can't give what I don't have. So contrary to popular belief and all the teaching, where we're supposed to be inspiring all the time, whether we are or aren't, that's nice theory, but it's not real. And so what's real is I need to fill up my well first. I need to fill up my and be inspired, because then I can be inspiring for others. I can't do it. I can fake it for a while, right? But I can't do it endlessly. So then once we've filled up our own well, then we're able to inspire others. That's the flame. And those are the castle principles. How do we inspire other people? By being courageous, authentic, serving others, telling the truth, being loving and effective. Why? Because we love people who are courageous. We love people who are authentic. We love people who serve others. This is what draws us to other people. Therefore, why don't we do that? And then lastly, the torch. The torch is our legacy. This is how we change the world. It's how we mentor, coach, teach, lead, all those things that influence others that will make a difference in the world and therefore change it.
That's so compelling, Lance. I'm in.
I know you are. You already were.
It helped when I meet people like you along the way. So that's
Well,
like you're saying, the association. One of the last question I want to really ask you before I ask you to close is this notion that you talk about the front wheel shift. And so you mentioned there's 3 key shifts that we need to make. Can you speak to those?
Yes, this is from a model where I liken a team, a group of people. That could be a family, it could be a team in a company, it could be any group of people, to a bicycle. And we get our power from the back wheel and we get our shifts of direction from the front wheel. So turning to the front wheel, there are some things they call shifts because we need to shift from old behaviors to new ones. So for example, from working on weaknesses to focusing on strengths, from working on fear to working on love, from working on breakthroughs to working on Kaizen, to working from me to working more on you, and so on. So these kinds of things are shifts. They're not easy because it's embedded in us to follow the ways in which I was saying we need to shift from. So it makes it difficult. The shift, for instance, from me to you is a really tough one. Because if I'm to spend my life thinking about you and stop thinking about me, that's a big change. I think about me a lot.
Incredibly powerful, Lance. We have really, it's amazing how fast it goes. We've come to the end of the show already here, and I want to give you a chance to close. And before you do, I first want to ask, I'm always talking about what we do with your one precious life, but given the magnificent life and career that you have built over the lives, over the years, and lifted tens of thousands of people whose lives you've touched, the books you've written, the speeches you've given, everything, what will delight and fulfill your soul in your own legacy?
Well, I would like to see, I'll be facetious for a moment. I'd like to see everybody buy this book, because I think this book is a recipe right now for a path going forward that we desperately need. The way I think of this, Elise, is the world desperately needs a sweet melody. Mm-hmm. And I'm carrying the music.
Mm. Yes, you are, my friend. I am so grateful to know you, to have you in my life, to learn from you, to be inspired by you. Thank you very much for sharing yourself with listeners and viewers on Working on Purpose today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Elise, and I'm sorry for the glitches that we experienced.
No worries. It was worth the wait. Listeners and viewers, if you want to learn more about Dr. Lance Secretan, the work he does to coach and teach leaders across the globe, or look into his myriad of books, start by visiting his website. It's secretan.com. Let me spell that for you. Secretan, Secretan. Last week, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it via recorded podcast. We were on the air with Dustin Stager talking about his very intimate and in-depth book, Blame This Book, Rescue Your Workplace Culture from Toxicity and Scapegoating. I never imagined there was that much to learn about blame, but Dustin really opened my eyes to why we do it, its devastating effects, and how we can build cultures anchored in trust and resiliency instead. Next week, we'll be on the air with Dr. John Schinner, talking about the work he does coaching men to greater connection and happiness. See you there. And remember that work is an integral and important part of our lives. It can be one of the best adventures and means of realizing our potential and making the impact we crave. So let's work on purpose.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's program. Be sure to tune into Working on Purpose, featuring your host, Dr. Elise Cortez, each week on W4CY. Together, we'll create a world where business operates conscientiously, leadership inspires impassioned performance, and employees are fulfilled in work that provides the meaning and purpose they crave. See you there. Let's work on purpose.